Hi everyone, I am Theo Sullivan, the local Connecticut HDI chapter president, and I'll be your MC for today. We're very proud and pleased to have partnered with our new sponsor, Sharewell Software, to bring you today's webinar. In addition, we would like to recognize our surrounding local chapters that have also partnered and joined us today: HDI New England, HDI Northern New England, and HDI Rhode Island. Before we get started, I'd like to review some of the upcoming events we have for our Connecticut chapter. First and foremost, the Regional Analyst of the Year and Desktop Technician of the Year awards were released today. The Regional Analyst of the Year was awarded to Anthony Korkunix from HDI Philly. The Regional Desktop Technician of the Year award was Nicole Sladik from the HDI Connecticut chapter. The national winners will be announced at the April HDI conference at the HDI 2016 Conference and Expo, which will be held in Orlando, Florida on April 12th through the 15th. The HDI National Conference is a great way to network with other managers and analysts for 2016. I've attended twice and highly recommend it if you have the opportunity to do so. If you are able to go to conference, make sure to attend session Breakfast Briefing 3, Building Your Brand, as Connecticut's HDI very own Jocelyn Mayo will be the featured speaker. In 2014, she presented to over 400 attendees 10 ways to engage your team. So get there early to get a seat. The Connecticut HDI chapter would like to get together with other Connecticut members at the conference, so please send an email to Carol Deschelle, Joe McGee, or Jocelyn DeMayo, as they will be planning on getting together for a happy hour. Look out for Connecticut HDI Spring Newsletter in March and emailings for upcoming events and officer opportunities. I also want to make folks aware of the membership change that HDI Corporate will be having. As of February 18th, they will be flattening out the membership levels. This change is driven by HDI Global. As a result, it will no longer offer the local chapter or resource membership levels. The professional membership level will be offered at $295, normally $495. Please address any membership questions or concerns with your local chapter, VP of Membership, or your local chapter president. With all that said, I'd like to introduce our speaker today. With nearly 25 years of solution consulting experience, Bill Sheridan's career has focused on leveraging technology, products, and consulting services to solve customer challenges and improve their businesses. For the past 12 years, he has held a number of roles at Advanced Marketplace, a partner with Sharewell Software. Currently, as Chief Strategy Officer, Bill Sheridan works with technology users, software vendors, and industry experts to identify common business challenges. So without further ado, Bill?
All right, thank you, Theo. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So appreciate, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Appreciate everybody's joining the presentation today. Well, great attendance so far. Before I jump into the presentation, so I'm looking at some of the poll results right now. I'm not sure if attendees can see these or not on their own. So to the question about, has your organization leveraged its ITSM solution to deliver solutions beyond IT? Right now, it looks like we have about 9 responses that say yes and 7 that say no. So that's a great balance, and hopefully that is going to provide a lot of good Q&A at the end of the presentation. What I'm going to do, Theo, I don't know if you're muted or not yet, but stay with me a second. I want to share my presentation to make sure you can see it and that we can advance slides without lag. So share. Okay.
I can see your desktop.
Perfect. Hopefully you see a PowerPoint slide now.
Yep, become an IT champion.
Perfect. Let me just see, I advance the slide now.
Yep, Advanced Marketplace.
Excellent. So then, okay, thank you. I'm going to jump in then. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Hopefully you'll find this fairly informative, maybe even a little bit entertaining. I really actually enjoy doing these in person where I get a little bit more interaction during the presentation, but hopefully you'll have some questions and we can get into the dialogue at the end of the presentation. So a little bit about our company. I think that Theo did a great job of introducing. We're a Sharewell partner. We've been in business for 19 years, and we started as an IT service management consulting company way back in 1996. So we've been doing this for a real long time. Obviously, over the years, we've expanded our capabilities, but still at the very core of everything we do is service management consulting. So give you a kind of perspective of who we are in the marketplace. In 2014, we were recognized by Forrester Research as one of the top service management solution providers in North America. You see their Forrester wave that they do there. The red dot represents us. So I give you that information basically to say, hey, the experts have recognized us for our expertise and longevity and market presence here. So hopefully some of the anecdotes I'm providing you today, that provides you a little bit of comfort in knowing that folks like, I have a relationship with folks like Forrester and Gartner and IDC. I do briefings with them quite a bit, and they recognize our company for the work we've done. And in particular, before we jump really into the topic today, I want to talk specifically about that check mark on the right there called Strategy for Legacy Modernization. When Forrester Research did their analysis of the organizations, we were fortunate enough to receive the highest score for this category that they call Strategy for Legacy Modernization. And really what that's about is the fact that we have a very specific focus within our practice in helping organizations to migrate from legacy technology to more of a future-facing platform that really enables customers to take advantage of this concept of enterprise service management that we're going to talk about today. And I'll touch base on, well, okay, what's legacy technology versus current technology. We'll touch base on some of that in the slides, and we may have some spirited conversations on some of that at the end. But just thought it was important for you guys to understand that our organization does have a focus specifically on helping companies in this enterprise service management space. So a little bit about the agenda today. We're going to define what enterprise service management is. We're going to talk about why it's important to IT, so hopefully everybody's ears will perk up specifically around that point because it really is a compelling story. We're going to take a little bit of a look back because the whole concept of getting beyond IT is not a new one, as evidenced by the poll question where 9 organizations have already said they're doing things beyond IT. And so it's important to look back historically at what's happened over the years, how people have tried to leverage this concept of getting beyond IT, and what some of the challenges have come up out of those earlier efforts. We'll talk a little bit about why now is the right time, whether you've tried in the past or you're thinking about it, why now is the right time to start to think about service management from more than an IT perspective, because there really is some compelling convergence in the industry around why now is a good time. We'll talk about how does that help IT. So if we do this, how does IT win in this scenario? And then we'll talk about the question that most people usually come up to me is like, okay, so where do I start? So we'll kind of try to cover all of that in about the next 40 minutes or so. Let me just see here. You have the ability to raise your hand, I think, during the session if you're having any kind of technical issues or anything. So please do that, and then Kara, our chairperson, can keep an eye out if they are. If you also want to submit questions as we go through the presentation because they're fresh in your mind, you can use the Q&A panel to submit questions, and we can address those questions as well at the end if you'd like to do it that way versus over the phone. So with that, close that panel and jump in. Okay, so enterprise service management, what is it? And really, it is the concept of how do we start to look at IT being the broker that delivers all sorts of business services to the organization. And there's been a number of different approaches of this, like I said, that we'll talk about through the course of this presentation over the years. But it really is the thought that the request and then approval and submittal and fulfillment process of an organization, whether that be for an IT-related issue or for some other line of business, there are a lot of common tenets and elements in those types of processes. And that the IT service management solution I would submit is one of the best tools to be able to leverage and deliver on those different types of requests and fulfillment. So the concept of enterprise service management, although not new, is really the thought of presenting a single unified portal or entry for your internal customers, end users, potentially external customers, to make a request to the organization and then drive the fulfillment of that request, not necessarily even through IT, but through the appropriate line of business, but then provide them an ability to see what's the status of that request, who's working on it, has it been approved, any of the pertinent information that multiple lines of business are dealing with on a daily basis to fulfill and to deliver service to the organization. And so if we look at the little diagram on the right, the concept of enterprise service management doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be on one application. That's an important distinction here, because the reality is there are some lines of business that are very complementary and may make a lot of sense. And so for the purposes of the example, I show you IT, HR, facilities, and CRM as blue trapezoids in that diagram on the right. And those are historically what we found. Those are small hops from IT, where IT can say, hey, we can potentially build what we need to fulfill requests on our IT platform. And then in other cases, it may not make sense. So for example, accounting, or PHI on the end there in yellow, in gold, is patient health information, say for a medical organization. And in those cases, obviously there may be some very specific needs, compliance type of concerns, whatever, that you want to have a very specific best of breed type of application as your data warehouse for those. But that doesn't mean that the requests that have to be handled and the approvals that have to be handled necessarily have to still reside with those applications, because the reality is, in a lot of cases, those best of breed applications for, say, patient health or accounting or some other line of business, they may not be real strong in that upfront requesting, presentation of a catalog, managing approvals process. And that's invariably where those organizations start to struggle, and it's really where the opportunity for IT is. So when we talk about what it is, let's talk also about what enterprise service management can be. And so here I've just got some examples, and these examples are all things that our clients today are doing, where they're leveraging their service management tool, whether it's just from the upfront catalog request fulfillment side, or in some cases, the entire application has been built on their service management platform. And some really cool stuff. Some of the stuff you would expect to see, like HR and facilities, which we talked about on the last slide, or project and portfolio management. But we've seen clients who've gotten really outside the box, and they're doing things like, accounting and financial requests. So a user, an employee, has to make a intercompany transfer request for funds or something like that. We've seen that done. You see university admissions to the far right. We have higher ed establishments that have built their entire university admission system on their ITSM platform. Now, some of you folks right now might be going, oh my goodness, that's the last thing I need on my ITSM platform. And we'll talk about why here in a little bit, why that's maybe possible today, and that would give you a headache if you're thinking about a tool that's a legacy tool. So probably the most important slide in this whole presentation is why, why is this important? Why is enterprise service management important? Why is it important for IT to start thinking about delivering services outside of traditional IT? And quite frankly, these logos that you're staring at right now are a very big piece of that. Salesforce.coms, the Workdays, the Boxes of the world, NetSuite, and 250 or 400 other cloud services providers today are calling directly on lines of business that have historically been IT's customers. And in a lot of cases, maybe IT is part of those conversations, but in many, many cases, what we're finding is that they're not. And what we're finding is that lines of business are now dictating back to IT, hey, we just signed an agreement with Salesforce. They're going to do our CRM now, and you need to make the integrations with our systems work with Salesforce. Or Workday is going to be doing our HR, and we've already made the decision, and now IT, go figure it out and make it work. So these are not the evil empire. These are all very good solutions, and they have their place in a lot of organizations. But the key really is to have IT be part of that process and not be told afterward that those decisions are made. And even more importantly, if IT can deliver these types of services to the organization, then there's more cohesiveness inside your organization. IT gets to maintain the support of those, has a deeper integration potentially because those applications are being run internally. And so the conversation that these types of companies are having with the lines of business is, hey, we are easy to use. You can get us up and running. We're built on best-of-breed processes. You know, we're a subscription. We can eliminate a lot of your infrastructure. We can do this faster and more agile than you guys do it yourselves. And that's really the pitch that cloud providers have been giving to lines of business now for years. And it's really important that IT understands that. They obviously recognize what's going on and then have a conversation back to lines of business of, hey, we can do this for you too. Or, no, we think this is a great idea. Let us assist in that process. And so really that's where enterprise service management is really that level set or the great neutralizer for IT to be able to have those conversations with the lines of business. So before we talk about then, how do we go forward and do that, we really need to take a step back. And I'll be curious when we open up the lines for the folks who have said, the 9 or so companies that said, yeah, we've already gotten beyond IT. I'll be curious to get some input if you guys would share it on where you are exactly today with some of those advancements beyond IT, because the ability to get beyond IT, historically speaking, while it's done some really good things to help provide additional services for IT to their customer, it hasn't been without its challenges, and all of us who've been in IT for any amount of time have probably had to live through some of those challenges. And a lot of that is because when we look at our legacy methods and tools, going back 15 years ago or more, IT was very technology driven. And what I mean by that is that in the early days of ticketing systems, which then became help desk systems, which became service desk systems, our focus in the early years, even prior to ITIL starting to really take shape, was, okay, I'm going to start with incident management. I'm going to implement that. Okay, I'm doing incident management now. Probably important for me to get change management up and running. Let me do change management. And really the progression or the maturity mentality was, let me implement modules because I own those modules. And tied to that was this whole, well, I can do this, so let me go build it, rather than looking at, should I do it, and what does that do for the level of service in the organization? So the entire industry in general, we got ourselves into a bind because we tried to do more things with the tool or tried to customize things with the tools of the day. And we got to a point where now upgrades became extremely difficult. Making changes became costly because you needed developers or you needed consulting companies to come in and do it. Organizations have found themselves now on versions that are 2, 3, 4 versions old and staring at big upgrade costs and saying, well, should we re-implement it? Should we look at another solution? Should we limp along on this? And so while there's been value provided in the past for organizations to try to do more than just IT service management, there were a lot of things working against being successful long-term with that approach. And so I've taken the liberty of putting some industry verticals up on a graph here. And if you're represented, I'm sure some folks are represented by some of these verticals. This is not necessarily indicative of every customer who may be in one of these verticals, but in general, what we've seen doing this for 19 plus years is that customers have tended to fall into two fairly diverse buckets. And so as you look at customers to the left side of this graph, and particularly financial services and retail organizations, those companies have been very progressive with and aggressive with wanting to do more with their ITSM solutions. So they've tailored and configured and customized their applications to do really specific business processes, and they've built lots of integrations into them, and they've tried to get outside of IT with those. And all those things, again, really trying to do the right thing and provide a higher level of service to their organization. And so particularly when you look at those organizations to the left, we find highly customized systems that they're struggling to, again, upgrade to get new enhancements or new features in the product activated because they've broken code and so on and so forth. And so that's been a challenge for those verticals to move off of those types of solutions. Conversely, if you look to the left side, and I pick on manufacturing and say K through 12 there, those organizations have gone the opposite route. They try to stay very vanilla in our experience and not customize and not tailor, just try to use the tool for its absolute minimums. And what we find there is they're dealing with a different issue. They're dealing with a perception issue where the organization says, I don't really see the value that IT is providing me. What do they do? I mean, stuff's always broken. Okay, yeah, I can call them. They can help me try to fix it. But they're not actually leveraging their tools or getting in them deep enough to where the organization, the business sees the value of IT. And so we're stuck in this place, or we have been stuck in this place where it's, okay, if I try to get really creative and do a lot of things, I'm kind of hosing myself because of legacy technology. If I try to stay close to out of box, I've got a perception issue. And so right about this time, usually when I'm doing this in a face-to-face, I'll usually have somebody say, hey, okay, so what does that mean? Can I use my current tool to do enterprise service management the way you're talking about? And unfortunately, the answer is it depends. And what it depends on is really not just the tool you have, but being fairly self-aware of your organization and what you as an organization tend to do. And what I mean by that is, look, a lot of our architectures out there and a lot of solutions are still of a nature where if you're going to configure the application to do something that's not out of box, you are impacting code that impacts an upgrade. And so that's a challenge for many, many of the tools out there today that have not had a modernized architecture tied to that product. And particularly for customers or for vendors who've been around for a long time and maybe bringing along hundreds or even thousands of customers, understandably becomes very difficult for them to change an entire architecture of a product when they have so many customers to be impacted. So as an organization, you have to kind of be self-aware of, okay, well, how much are we going to tailor our current tool, and how much are we potentially going to break it if we do that? And really, that's the kind of, you need to do that analysis through all the bullets that are on this slide. I mean, do I have a tool that's really difficult to administer? And if it is, am I okay with having 2 or 3 full-time administrators to be able to do that to this tool? And if the answer is yes, and you're an organization of that size, well, then maybe your current tool is okay. If the answer is no, we're trying to lower costs and do more with less, then maybe that's not the right tool. And so as you go through each of these, whether it's, hey, it's just gotten too expensive over the years, or I have a solution today that really isn't extensible enough, it won't let me get beyond IT because it won't let me tailor the solution outside of some basic ITIL processes. There are a lot of solutions out there today where maybe you're kind of questioning what the future is or the vendor's current commitment to that product. I mean, all these things have to go through your analysis of determining Can my current solution work for enterprise service management platform? The last bullet I'll touch on specifically, because this one's really important, I think, is that there's been a lot of, obviously, change in the ITSM space. You know, it's funny, we've been doing this now for almost 20 years. And for 20 years, we keep going, wow, this is pretty mature. ITSM is pretty mature. Things are going to settle down. And yet it just seems like every few years, there's some new and exciting stuff going on within the service management space. And so when we talk about portability, this really is about cloud versus on-premise conversation. The industry, the service management industry, is still trying to figure out, do I want to be a cloud player? Do I want to be an on-prem player? Do I want to be both? If I'm going to be both, am I going to have one solution that does both? Am I going to have a different solution for each of those? And so as part of your self-awareness about either your current solution or any solution you may move to, you need to also give some consideration to the fact of, okay, today we may be a company that's likes everything on-prem behind our firewall, but we're considering cloud in the future. Or vice versa. Hey, we're giving cloud a shot, but we're not sure it's going to work. We may want to pull it on-prem. And roll that into your decision-making process, because at the end of the day, if you select a solution and it's a cloud-only solution, then 2 years from now, you'll know we want to bring it on-prem, and that means you have to go to a whole new solution. It's just significant cost and effort and trouble to do that inside the organization. So, all that being said, why is now the right time to really give a new look at enterprise service management and getting beyond IT? And I would tell you that there's three, it's almost like the perfect storm. There's three fronts that are all coming together right now at the same time that are making this happen. I will tell you that probably 80% of our customers today are getting beyond IT, are doing things that are beyond IT, and a lot of them are really not the traditional areas that you would expect. And we're having our customers come to us with all kinds of things where, hey, I got this outlier business and they want to do this and that, and can you do that? And we're like, yeah, sure, we can do that. So it's really exciting to see that momentum pick up. And I would tell you it's because of these three elements. And so the first one is user adoption is achievable. So everybody here on the phone today, if you've been in IT for any period of time, you know, you've gone through the struggles of, how do I get this guy to stop grabbing me in the hallway and call the service desk? To, how do I get this guy to stop calling the service desk and just send me an email? To, how do I get this guy to stop sending me an email and check the knowledge base? And if you can't find a knowledge base, submit it through the portal, right? There's been this evolution of trying to get our end users to do something that helps the service desk be more efficient. And so I would tell you is, for the first time in history, we are in a position where our IT customers, our end users, are tech savvy enough that they're ready, they're hungry for tools that allow them to research their own issues, that allow them to enter a ticket without having to sit on hold on a call, and view the status of that ticket without having to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Granted, there's still pockets where that's not the case, but what we've seen is when you make those tools available to end users and you make them easy to use and you make the branding really good and you make it a fun experience, that users would prefer to look at that, go to that portal, than a lot of the historical methods for trying to solve their solutions. A lot of it's because of the smartphone. I mean, the reality is that every user today walks around with a personal service catalog in their hand. And 90% of people, when they want to answer a question, the first thing they do is pull out their phone and they launch an app, they go search for an app, they go search online. And so our users are now conditioned to be able to use technology to help them navigate their jobs. The second piece of this is the user experience. And this is actually not the end user I'm talking about, but it's actually the internal business's focus. We have seen over the last 4 years a very definitive shift with IT and with businesses in looking at a outward in, how does my end user, how does my customer experience the interaction with us, whether that's a request for account access, new employee onboarding, to everything that I just have a problem, whatever the case may be. There's really been a shift to where now we're looking at the user experience in rather than the business process out. And that's really key when we start talking about getting users to behave a certain way, giving them that experience, that gives them the right experience, that is concerned with how they interact with IT or other lines of business is important. And then the last piece is we are now seeing technology available in the market that's going to allow you to go well beyond IT and not break the application, not get you stuck on a version where you can't get off of it. And so when you look at modern architecture, it's out there today where the changes that you make, and even if they're entire applications like facilities or HR or legal service management, you can build these entire applications and not impact the code that's the upgrade code, so you're never having issues with whether you can upgrade or not. The term codeless configuration is becoming extremely popular right now, not only within ITSM, but within the software industry in general. And so what you have to be mindful of is it takes a lot of code to make something codeless, and you need to be able to dig into a solution and figure out, okay, how far can I take this solution? How extensible really is it before this whole codeless thing has me locked in? And what I would tell you is that there are solutions out there today that you can do amazing things with, things that traditionally would require someone doing JavaScript or Jelly or HTML or .NET, don't have to do them anymore. And why that's really cool is because it's now driving cost out of owning those applications, because you no longer need to have developers working on building your business processes or your enhancements. You don't have to bring expensive consulting companies like ourselves in every time you guys want to make a change or bring on a new piece of functionality. That's where the industry is moving, and today there's technology that can do that for you. So these three pieces coming together is why now is probably the best time in history to get beyond IT. I think we just got a couple more slides here before we open it up. So this is really just a re-emphasis of that last slide that says there is a better design out there. You can leverage these different types of components on the slide to really find the right mix that works for you to get beyond IT. And it could be your current solution. It might be a different solution. But weigh in the architecture, truly dig into how codeless something really is. Mobility is a big piece for today going forward. So much of what end users and technicians do today is on a portable device, whether it be a smartphone or a tablet. Make sure that whatever strategy you're employing, there's a healthy native mobile component to that. And really, I mean, the broader that reaches, whether it's Android, iOS, or Windows Mobile, the better off you're going to be. Another one I want to talk about is simplified pricing. This one gets overlooked a lot, but if you look at the way the ITSM space has grown over the years, it really grew and matured along with ITIL. And so historically speaking, vendors kind of did a la carte pricing for many, many years, because as a customer would mature and they wanted to add a new ITIL module, the vendor would say, okay, well, here, you can add that module. It's this much more money. Or if you wanted to add some new functionality like a catalog to the front end, okay, well, yeah, we can sell you a catalog. It's this much more money. Well, with ITIL, V3, and just the maturity process, the reality is every solution that you look at today, IT service management-wise, whether it's one you own today or something new, all of that should be included. I mean, you should not have to get a la carte to death, for lack of a better term, for every module that you want to do to provide service management to your customer base. Pricing needs to be simplified. A lot of vendors are moving toward that simplification, and that's important. We've already talked about portability. The last piece is integration platform. Integration is super, super important with technology being so dynamic and data being in so many different areas of an organization today. You want an integration platform for your tool that does not require coding, because often what we find when we go into customers and they're struggling with an upgrade, and they're back at several versions, often it's actually the integrations and what's going to break at the integration level that's causing them to have to stay where they're at. So they may even have figured out, okay, we can get the code to the latest version, and we can get our clients upgraded, and we can take advantage of some new features. But we have 35 applications that are going to break, and they're just all of them are tons of code, and we're afraid to do that. So it's important to think about integrations and how that'll work, even if the tool seems to make sense. So really what this all this does, again, going back to that whole first, that one of the slides where we talk about Salesforce and Workday and all this, is what we're trying to do is change the conversations that IT is having with their lines of business and get those more strategic. So if IT can now go to their organization and say, look, I can provide more levels of service than just IT service, and I can streamline the types of requests that our end users have, and I can give you a platform, Mr. HR, Mr. Facilities, Mr. Legal, where you can get your stuff and fulfill it in an easier fashion, and we can just be the conduit through which that happens. You start to change the conversations of what IT's role is in an organization, and we've seen it because we've seen our customers where rather than saying, well, we're working on our budget this year, and so we're going to put so much money in to do an upgrade, and we're going to bring this new module online, and so on and so forth, they're starting to have conversations around, hey, we want to bring these other 3 lines of business in because they want to come on board, and we think we can do it now. And so we're having conversations with these businesses. Would you join us with these lines of business and work out the design? And that really changes the perception of IT to the rest of the business. So when we talk about that, what is the payoff for IT, right? You're getting better alignment with your different departments, obviously providing greater value. You're improving the service execution across departments. And this is a key one because so often in so many of our clients, we hear about the breaks in communication chains when stuff has to get handed off between departments. And I'll use the employee onboarding as a great example, where you have potentially HR and IT, potentially facilities, potentially an asset management group, maybe even legal involved in onboarding. And so every time we start to talk to a customer about how they're going to do that onboarding process, it's notoriously finger pointing of, oh, well, we don't even find out that the guy needs a computer till he's been on site for 3 days as an employee, or HR is saying, well, we told him 3 weeks ago and they never got his LAN access set up, or legal saying, what is this guy doing his first day? We haven't even gotten his signed employee agreement yet. So when you start to have a bigger vision than just IT, you start to fix those breakdowns in communication because there's more cohesion in the processes. Financially, your organization can benefit because you start to retire applications. You start to consolidate maintenance streams that are outgoing to all these different applications by starting to bring more and more of those onto a single platform. And you can see the rest of the slides there and some of the other bullets. So I think this may be my last slide. So then usually the question I get is, okay, so then where do we start? I mean, if I'm interested in doing this, or maybe I've done it with limited success and I really kind of need to reevaluate, there's some really great areas that are easy to pick off and provide some quick value for IT. And so one of the very first ones you see there, business processes that are email-based. We go into so many customers where when you get outside of IT, there are different pockets of business, really different pockets of people that are fulfilling requests where it's all email-based. And we all know the amount of email that every single person gets. And so what historically we find is that any parts of the business that are trying to manage requests and fulfill work using email are great places where IT can say, hey, I can come on board, come beside you, come by your side and help you solve that problem. We can create a request form. We can build in approvals and drive this process through and streamline it for you so that you're not drowning in email and so that your end users can know where their request stands. So email-based processes are a great place. Departments that have email aliases is another one. So, marketing at abccompany.com or HR requests or payroll at such and such. Any of those kinds of things are areas where IT can say, hey, I can come pull that into a catalog. We can present a great place for an end user to provide you all the information you're going to need without having to go back 3 or 4 times from them. And we can then automate that process of approval and fulfillment and really make this a lot easier on you. And we see it time and time again with our customers as they start to embrace the theory and this concept of enterprise service management. And so you see a few others there. Subject matter experts. If you've got, everybody's got one. If you got somebody who's been there 20 years and you can't have a meeting or make a decision without this person's input because they know where all the skeletons are buried, man, those are some great processes to get inside your enterprise service management platform so that you're not so dependent on that person. I think the benefits there are pretty apparent. So what does that mean? I mean, basically what you see here is what Thomas Edison actually said when they finally had success in creating the light bulb. He said, we now know 1,000 ways not to build a light bulb. And that's really where we are as a service management community today. We know a lot of ways to not go beyond IT because they're just going to get us in trouble. And what we also know now is the path to do it correctly. So we're about to open it up here for questions. Before I do that, I wanted to post this survey. Theo had asked that I make sure that we had this there. So if you guys want to, I don't know if you can do a screen scrape or a cut and paste of that. They certainly the chapters would love some feedback on today's session. And what I'm going to try to do here, Kara, hopefully you're there and listening because I'm not sure I know how to open this up.
Yep. There are a couple questions that are in the chat. If you'd like me to read them out to you, if you want to read them, I can open the phone lines if you'd like. It's up to you. Let me know what you'd like to do.
Yes, I think I got the questions. Let me see here. So it looks is Jocelyn the first one?
Yep. Both questions are from her.
Okay, perfect. So yeah. So first question from Jocelyn is, what do you predict are some of the upcoming trends we should expect? So here's what I will tell you, and it's kind of interesting. We're seeing. I mean, it's not even at this point expecting. I think we're kind of in the midst of it, but we are seeing an acceleration. I mean, look, our industry is a fairly cyclical industry. Anyone's been in it for a while has experienced things from. There's been like a best of breed. I want to own the best of breed of every product out there and just work, have them all integrated and talking. And then you go back to the platform play, and then you have a lot of big vendors traditionally who say, hey, we can do all this stuff. Come use our platform. And unfortunately, the reality is for folks who've gone that way, they found out that platform wasn't so much of a platform as it was 25 companies that they acquired, and now they're trying to get all the integration to work. So what we see today is that there are organizations that are absolutely embracing this concept of enterprise service management, and the technology is there with some vendors to be that platform, and it's truly an integrated. It's one product that manages it all. And so what we see is an acceleration of this concept of enterprise service management and getting beyond IT. I will tell you that there are 2 research analyst firms that are behind that, and not behind it. They recognize it and support it and are watching it very closely. Those are Forrester and IDC. Gartner is taking a little bit more cautious, I don't want to say approach to it, but they're not sure how they feel about this enterprise service management. They recognize it's going on. They're just not sure if they like it or not. But at the end of the day, what with my briefings with them, I said, look, whether you like the concept or not, it's good for the customer, and they're doing it. Hopefully that answers your first question. Second question was also for large-sized companies, greater than 10,000 employees, how usual is it to have multiple solutions in play? Great question. And it varies quite a bit. So I'll give you some very specific examples without saying their names. So there is a huge mortgage company, I'll just say, that's they are kind of to the far end of the spectrum. And what I would say is that they have a very successful enterprise service management vision. And in their model, they basically have a mandate from the CEO that says, before we go buy any other application, we need to go see if we can build it on our current platform. They have about 250 different business applications they developed on their IT service management platform. So you have folks who've gone all the way to that end of things. But even customers who've embraced enterprise service management in some other areas still have multiple apps. I mean, the medical field is a great example. We have a customer whose name I can mention, Envision Radiology in Colorado Springs. So they have about, I think, 30 or 40 radiology offices around the central part of the country. And so when you look at the enterprise service management strategy that we've employed with them, their customers go into a single portal. And from that single portal, they can say, I need IT help, I need help with medical records, I need help with claims processing, I need to request reports, I need to do, I have a billing request. So they touch, I think there's actually 8 different lines of business that when a user comes in, they can go to one of those different 8 lines of business. Now, in their case, those different lines of business may be using very industry-specific software, medical software, or claims processing software. So in their case, their ITSM tool is not doing claims processing, but what the ITSM tool is doing is being the front catalog that says, okay, you can request information on this claim. It's actually then going and making sure that they have the rights for that request. If there's approval, they're running the approval process, and then they're handing that work to, or the task, that work, the ticket, whatever you want to call it, they're handing it to somebody in the claims processing department. That person may actually go into their claims processing app to get the information, but the request is then handed back into their platform, their service manager platform, to be fulfilled. So hopefully that makes sense and answers your question. If not, or I didn't touch on it, feel free to unmute and jump back in here. It does. You said it does. So great. Thank you. I got one here from Brent Tucker. It says, future. Any info on Agile project management module, which Cherwell is finalizing with a major financial vendor? I'm not sure I understand the question. Brent, if you're asking, do I have any information on an Agile project management module that they are finalizing? Is that what you're asking? Yes. Okay. So I'm familiar with Cherwell's. It's called ITPD, IT Project Tracking. We've done some pretty neat things with that for customers. I don't have any specific knowledge about the piece that you're talking about, but certainly between myself or Ira, who's the Cherwell rep, we can do some research there, or if you wanted to have a conversation about this afterward, certainly can do that too. All right, so give me a follow-up. Is the ITPT module calculating budgets correctly now? Again, I'm not sure I understand. We've got it deployed at customers, and it does calculate costs and budgets, actually for time, materials, and applies them to budgets. So I probably need a little bit more information or some specifics on the application you're talking about to get you some answers on that one. Okay, so yeah, we're having an ongoing dialogue, but I don't want to kind of continue the conversation here with all these folks about this. I'd be happy to take it offline about the different versions and stuff like that, but certainly love to do a follow-up on that. Does anyone have any other questions on this particular topic or Sharewell in general or anything? I know this wasn't really a Sharewell presentation. Is there anybody who would like to unmute? Kara, does anyone have their hand raised, wants to be unmuted?
Nope, not at this time.
Theo, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know if you had any closing remarks that you'd like to make.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Just kind of in closing, I'd just like to say the HDI chapters of Northern New England, HDI New England, HDI Rhode Island, and HDI of Connecticut wanted to extend a warm thank you for everyone joining the meeting today. We'd specifically like to thank Connecticut's new sponsor, Sharewell Software, and especially Bill Sheridan from Advanced Marketplace for putting on today's wonderful webinar event. Thank you all and have a wonderful weekend.